Hi friends, Andrew Carruthers here, Education Director for Sam Villa. One of the biggest challenges to a hairdresser is creating fullness and fine hair. And normally what we reach for is one of these, a round brush. So we thought it would be important to talk a little bit more in detail about what brush to choose and also how to utilize it to the best advantage especially when working with very fine hair. So let's talk about the brush itself. Lots of times we see people reaching for very large round brushes when they're creating volume or fullness. Now, this actually is kind of counterintuitive, but larger round brushes don't necessarily create the best volume. Smaller round brushes create the best volume, and here's the reason why. If you look at when I take the hair and I place it around this very large round brush, if you look at how much the hair has to stretch to get actually to a point where it creates curve, it actually straightens the hair from the scalp out to about middle of the brush most of the time. Now, you can use your old school, beauty school principles and do on base, but still you have a lot less curvature to the brush than you do with a smaller round brush. So if we grab a smaller round brush, what you'll notice is that with a smaller round brush, number one, even if you're not on base, there's a lot less straightness to the hair because the roundness of the brush is closer to the head. But if we go on base, if we go right on base, what happens is there's a much tighter curvature now because of the smaller brush. And that tighter curvature is going to be what helps to give hair that pop up off of the scalp. That larger round brush is going to make things pretty soft. It's going to leave a much softer curvature to the hair, so it's just not going to be as strong. Now, whether you choose a boar hair bristle or a thermal round brush is really based on texture of hair, because with boar hair bristle, this is our Artist Series Spiral Thermal, and this has a thermal core, but it also has the boar hair bristle. The boar hair bristle is going to create a lot more tension and polish the cuticle, but you might not want that on a very fine-haired guest. Where a true thermal brush, this only has a little bit of boar hair bristle to help with distribution of product, our thermal brushes are going to be less tension, so it's not going to stretch the hair as much. And a lot of it's about technique. So on this side of the head, I've already started working with the spiral thermal brush. This is the one that has the boar hair bristle. And we've been doing a technique where we actually pull and stretch the hair from wet to dry with the round brush. What I'm going to do on the opposite side is we're going to rough dry the hair to about 90% dry, and then we're going to introduce the round brush in a different way. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish up this side real quick. You're going to see the technique. We're going to kind of speed through it, but you can see the technique that we're using with this brush. And then we're going to go to the other side and I'm going to set you up on how we're going to utilize this brush. Alright, so we finished up this side using the spiral thermal round brush and more of a stretch it out technique. Now, we did get quite a bit of curl to the hair, and it's a really nice polished finish. This is actually really quite beautiful, I think. And the mannequin does have a decent amount of hair, so that stretch and polish on the hair isn't going to be detrimental on the mannequin head to not nearly as much as on a real human that's going to have very, very fine hair. But let me show you the other side, and you're gonna see quite a big difference. So let's come over to this side. And on this side now, we're gonna switch techniques. So we're going to go to a true thermal round brush that just has just the polymer bristles in it. It doesn't have, well, it does have a small amount of boar hair, but not enough to create tension, just enough to help to distribute product. And with this one, let's divide her off. With this one, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a little bit of a rough dry first. So she has gotten a little bit dry from just sitting as I was setting up for this particular video shoot. So we're gonna dampen her down just a little bit. Doesn't have to be super dry, or sorry, super wet. And then we did set up both sides with Redken Guts 10. It's definitely one of our favorite volumizing sprays because we can direct it right down at the scalp. Now, instead of coming in and immediately going in with the round brush, instead what we're going to do is we're going to get our hands in there. And we're going to lift and pull the hair up off of the scalp and get the blow dryer in there and try and kind of blow up the cuticle a little bit. So on that side, we were really trying to polish the cuticle and get the cuticle as smooth as possible. This side, we're going to do the opposite. So first things first, I'm just going to get in there with my hands. All right, now that's a big fuzzy mess, isn't it? Don't worry, that's exactly what we want. And now we're gonna start the actual round brushing process, but we're gonna do it a little differently. And if you were paying attention as you watched the speed through of the other side, we were round brushing in a little different way than maybe you were taught, because usually we're taught to start with the round brush at the base first and then go to the mid shaft and then to the ends. What we discovered is when we do that, if we get a bunch of curl down here at the base, but then we come into these ends and start stretching here, we're actually pulling that base straight as it's cooling. So if you reverse the process and you go to the ends first, you can leave more curl to the hair. So especially with this particular technique where what we've done is actually purposely disrupted that cuticle and made the hair a little bit fuzzy. We're going to go to these ends first. And on the ends, we are going to pull the brush through. Because what makes the illusion of polish is if the ends are polished. People won't look at the base as much when they're trying to look for if something is polished. So if we can get these ends to look like they have some shine and polish to them, then the rest of it doesn't necessarily have to have that same polish. So now watch, the next step, as I go to the mids, watch as I let those ends curl around the brush as they cool. So they're not going to be pulled straight now, they're going to keep that curl. But watch, I'm not going to stretch the hair anymore. Now what I'm going to do is turn on the heat. We're just on medium heat right now, just so you can hear okay. And we're just going to actually curl the brush and let it move in and out. So initially I'm focusing on the mid-strand, mid-strand, mid-strand. I'm not pulling the brush through the hair. I'm just allowing it to roll back and forth because I don't want tension. So I'm even being very gentle with my tension. Then we're going to come all the way down to the base and do the same thing. Just roll in and out at the base. Now, once I get the hair nice and hot, and that thermal brush is going to get the hair really nice and hot, it's going to retain all the heat from the blow dryer, then I'm going to turn the blow dryer off, and I'm going to wait till I can feel the outside of the hair just cool down a touch. Then I'm going to carefully roll out, and I'm going to just give the hair a little twist and let it set. Now, I want to make sure I leave that hair alone because if I, again, start raking my hands through, it's going to pull everything out of the hair. So we're going to leave that cool, and then I'm going to finish up the rest of it so you can see the side-to-side comparison, and watch as I do stretch the ends, But then when we get to the mids and the base of the hair, I'm just rolling the brush to not create tension. All right, so that's the last section. And again, we're just gonna let it cool just enough. And a lot of people would probably ask, well, why not use your cool shot button? Partially because I find when I get the cool shot button on, it takes a little while for it to cool down, then I get it cooled off, then when I release it, it takes a little time to get back up to heat. So for me, I'm fine with just letting it cool just a little bit and then allowing the air cooling process to happen. But by all means, you could definitely use the cool shot button if that's kind of your favorite tool to use. So totally up to you. All right, so let's look at our two sides side by side. We'll let this cool just a few more moments. I think you'll instantly see a huge difference between the side that we stretch dried with the spiral thermal brush. And again, not that that's a bad finish, it's an absolutely gorgeous finish that I think lots of our guests would want. But then when you come to the opposite side, especially for your fine-haired guests or girls that are looking for that Texas hair, you know, the higher the hair, the closer to God, right? If we want something with more fullness, more fluff to it, I think you're gonna see that side number 2, where we used the thermal brush and did not create tension at the base, has a lot more of that kind of fluffy fullness. And so when you're looking at your guests and their hair textures, these are the decisions we need to make. And it has to be which tool is the right tool, which products are the right products, but then also what approach is the right approach to get the finished result. So if you have any questions at all, please leave us a comment. We love to hear from you guys. If you have any ideas on great round brushing tips, leave those too. Let's start a discussion here. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Sam Villa.